August 11th marks a rather obscure but somber and significant anniversary. Back in 1972, on August 11th, the last American ground combat unit left Vietnam. And this can get lost in the blur of events, the negotiations, the war itself, the Christmas bombing in 72, the dramatic peace accords, and then the disintegration of the American capacity to fight in Vietnam, politically speaking, and eventually the fall of Vietnam and that tragic date, April 30th of 1975, when Saigon fell. But the reason that the withdrawal of ground troops is significant, this happened in the midst of fierce fighting by North Vietnamese regular forces, a clear-cut case of aggression, and yet somehow the debate in the United States and the world had become so distorted that that did not seem to be sufficient cause for the Americans to stand by their ally. And yes, South Vietnam wasn't the kind of ally you might want, but they were a lot better than the North Vietnamese. And there is this theory that Richard Nixon had somehow come to realize that the Vietnam War was strategically untenable and possibly even somewhere in the dark corners of his dark mind full of corners, that it was morally untenable. And that what he and Henry Kissinger were looking for was a decent interval so they could bug out, in Nixon's phrase, without seeming to. That they could prop up their ally and go, okay, fine, we wash our hands of it. And then 2.5 years later, if the ally fell, it would not affect America's credibility or its strategic position. Now, I'll tell you, first of all, I don't believe Nixon was thinking that way. His mind was not of that sort. He kept his options open. He was able to face reality even when he didn't like it. But Nixon did pledge to back South Vietnam. The Paris Peace Accords hinged on that American guarantee, and if he hadn't done himself in with the idiotic and definitely illegal and constitutionally menacing Watergate scandal, he would have tried very hard to stand by South Vietnam when North Vietnam openly attacked it again in 1975. But a lot of liberals thought this was a very clever ploy, a way that you could secretly liquidate your credibility. And as you face unpleasant entanglements in the modern world, including in Iraq and Afghanistan, it's very important to look at the long-term consequences of that decision to withdraw combat troops, withdraw aerial support, withdraw financial support, and see if you could ditch an ally on the sly when no one was looking. You can't. Your enemies are watching, your friends are watching. And when your allies do not trust you and your enemies do not fear you, you will find yourself faced with a host of horrible challenges of the sort that did confront the United States in the Carter years, precisely because nobody was fooled by what the liberals thought was a clever strategy, this decent interval. Nixon didn't believe it. He was trapped into it, and then Gerald Ford. But the liberals thought it was clever, and they were very wrong then, and they'd be just as wrong today as they were back on August 11th of 1972, and then again in April of 1975.
Thanks for watching. Click here to never miss a Rebel update. Want even more of the Rebel? Well, click here to become a premium member.